Hello, my name is Stephanie Archer, and I'm a PhD candidate in piano pedagogy at Florida State University. Welcome to my presentation on injury prevention in the piano studio. I feel that this topic is crucial for every piano teacher and teachers of other instruments as well, to be able to aid their students in playing as physically free and pain-free as possible. I have personally dealt with playing-related injuries, which did not even appear until adulthood, when I was out of school working as a full-time musician. Imagine my confusion and horror when I had developed forearm tendonitis for the first time in my life. I believe these issues stemmed from numerous factors, some which may be impossible to ever prove. Yet through this experience, I have learned many tools and techniques that can aid students and teachers and performers to care for their bodies better. The strategies will be focused on the pianist in this presentation. However, some will be applicable to any musician.
You may ask, why should we discuss this topic at all? Well, unfortunately, injury is common among many musicians, including pianists. One study found that 76% of orchestra musicians had problems which affected their playing. Another study of over 200 pianists found that 77% had been injured, while another study reported 63% of its pianist participants had been injured. Pianists have reported issues to researchers and medical providers in their fingers, hands, wrists, arms, and shoulders, among other parts of the body. I personally have dealt with injuries in my forearms and have had to learn how to better care for my body in order to avoid chronic pain from playing. Awareness of this phenomenon is important in order to prevent and overcome injury. Pianists often practice for many hours, especially college students. It is not uncommon for a pianist to play 6 to 8 hours a day, 7 days a week. While practice is obviously important to be prepared for performing, strategic practice and awareness should be followed. Mindless playing often results in injury. I often like to say that musicians are athletes of the small muscles. We certainly use our bodies in practice as much as athletes do. I'd like for us to take a look at the NCAA regulations for student athletes in regards to practicing, for us to compare how collegiate athletes and musicians treat our bodies. Coaches are not allowed to schedule practice for their student athletes more than 4 hours per day, and they are required to take 1 day off per week. And these are the requirements during the competition season for all sports. Now let's compare this to how musicians practice. Collegiate pianists are often practicing for more than 4 hours a day, especially when preparing for a performance, and certainly when you factor in extra rehearsals or coachings. And I know very few people who actually take a day off from practicing each week. I find it interesting and slightly alarming that musicians are often encouraged to push our bodies further than collegiate athletes are expected to. Fortunately, there are medical professionals who have taken an interest in musicians' physical issues. Publications and research are becoming more accessible regarding musician issues in order to aid this population. Some doctors, such as the renowned Alice Branfenbrenner, have taken special interest in helping this group of patients. In the 1980s, Dr. Branfenbrenner helped to establish the Performing Arts Medicine Association, which publishes the journal Medical Problems of Performing Artists. Organizations such as this one grant musicians and physicians the ability to work together in combating these common playing-related issues. Many books have also been written on this subject, which can aid teachers, students, and performers alike. I have two I'd like to recommend to you today. The first is Paula Savidu's Teaching the Whole Musician, A Guide to Wellness in the Applied Studio. This is a great book on the very topics that we will be covering in this presentation today. Another book I'd like to recommend is Thomas Mark's What Every Pianist Needs to Know About the Body. This book describes in detail the mechanics behind playing the piano and strategies for using the body at optimum efficiency. I highly recommend both of these.
First, I would like to address proactive strategies. First, and most obviously, one is teaching students proper technique from day one. When a young student, or older student for that matter, begins piano lessons for the first time, they are developing habits. If technique is not prioritized in these formative years of study, small gaps in knowledge and ability can develop. These gaps may not seem prominent or important in the moment, but if left unaddressed, could cause issue years down the road, preventing the student from playing advanced repertoire and ultimately causing discomfort or injury. I like to think of the imagery of a house. A foundation is laid first when building the house. And I'm sure you are aware of how expensive foundation issues are to repair. A good foundation is so important that home inspectors look for flaws in the foundation when advising someone whether to purchase a home or not. A poor foundation can cause the entire house to collapse. Now let's take a look at teaching specific beginner technical concepts.
All right, so let's talk about piano posture. Sitting at the piano is one of the first things a student will learn, and it's important that they are doing this correctly from the beginning. This allows them to feel comfortable, that they're able to play with a proper tone, and that they are to develop from a place of grounded, secure posture. So first off, the student needs to sit tall and straight. Sometimes some teachers like the imagery of something coming straight out of the head. I like the term that in yoga often is talked about head over heart over pelvis, and that is merely having a straight image of the bones being stacked on top of one another. This stacking of bones is actually really important because the bones are what hold your body up. If you sit in a slump posture, you're not allowing your skeleton to do its job, and you're putting more strain on different parts of the body. So sitting up straight with the relaxed shoulders, sometimes when I have students who are tense, I might have them hold their shoulders up to their ears and squeeze it and let it drop and let them feel that difference. Usually that helps a lot. You should be sitting on the front half of the bench on your sits bones, and this allows and encourages for tall, good posture. My feet are flat on the floor with right angles in my knees. You can't really see it in this video, but trust me, it's there. You want your student to feel secure, and just as a table has 4 points of contact and it will be secure and steady when those 4 legs are all grounded, your 2 hips and your 2 feet should create 4 points of contact for you to feel secure when playing. For small students, they might need a footstool to raise the ground up to them. Adjustable piano stools are available, as well as adjustable pedal extenders. Both of these are really important for the piano teacher to own and to encourage students to own as well, to help them develop properly in this area. Now when it comes to the sitting position, I often have students reach out with their fists like this to measure, and if you're too close, you'll squish like this, and if you're too far away, you can't reach it. And so that way they can tell if they're a proper distance away. And then just gently place their hands on the piano, not actually depressing the keys, but just to measure where their arm falls. Now, it's ideal for the piano teacher to have an adjustable bench so they can adjust accordingly for everyone who sits at their piano. However, if they don't have one, or maybe the student doesn't have one at home, having foam, these are just foam mat puzzle piece sort of thing you have for maybe your gym floor or for playroom floor. These can be very handy, and you can stack them for the student to sit on. Because you want the student's forearm to fall level, possibly just a little higher. Mine is just slightly higher here than the keys. If it's too far down, their arm weight is not going to be distributed properly. And if it's too far up, they won't be able to either. So that being level there with the keys is a really important component of playing. One of the most important technical concepts a beginner student can master is the use of proper arm weights. If this isn't addressed early and mastered early, it could lead to issues later on down the road. So when teaching arm weight, I usually find the easiest way to do that is away from the bench. And so you can just start by having the student let their arms hang freely. I like doing this move. If you practice yoga or are familiar with it at all, you'll know this is a pose called knocking on heaven's door. Don't ask me where the name came from, but you can spin and you can go even faster. It actually feels amazing. It's great for releasing tension in the body. I would recommend doing this in the middle of your practice session if you just need a little break. Great idea. So, but anyway, you're getting the body really, really loose because you want the student to be able to lift their arm and drop it with dead weight. Some of them won't know what you mean by dead weight, and many children will think they understand and then immediately slap their arm or on their leg. And so you know that's not really dead weight. I often have the student feel my arm and feel how relaxed it is and then drop it. Imagery can be really useful here. Some of the method books have different imagery that can be useful for students. I personally am a big Harry Potter fan, so I like the idea of thinking about when Harry gets the bone zapped out of his arm during the Quidditch game, and so you have a floppy rubber arm like Harry did. Great for those kids who are into that. But whatever imagery you can get. Young children might take a few weeks to get this concept, but it should be reinforced over and over again. And once they're able to do it away from the piano, then it can be brought to the piano where they're using their arm weight in playing. When teaching a young student how to play the piano, hand shape should be one of the most important concepts that is addressed. We have often heard the term rounded hand shape, but what does that mean exactly? So the hand bridge should be one of the most important aspects of the round hand shape. Here we can see that with my hand just resting gently, the bridge is actually coming slightly higher than the wrist. I am not holding my arm up with my fingers in an overly curved position. And you can see here that my hand is flat. The bridge is no longer intact. This creates tension, whereas this hand shape is quite natural and feels much more free. Then the fingers can play individually with a firm fingertip without feeling strained or forced. The bridge here looks like you can see the 4 knuckles distinctly. For some students who might find this difficult, a common way to work on this is to close your hand into a fist, like this, and then open it gradually once again, keeping the fist hand shape intact. All right, now we're going to talk about the first gesture a student might do at the piano. So once the student is engaged the arm weight and has learned the round hand shape, we can take it to the piano. Now, I usually start off students playing one finger at a time to help them distribute their arm weight properly. A lot of students, when they first start piano, if they play with multiple fingers, all of a sudden they lose that round hand shape. They want to play individual fingers kind of in this manner. And so we really, really want to avoid that. So I have students make this round hand shape, and they can keep their fingers close together. They don't even need to spread them out just yet. And I usually start with finger 3 because that is the longest finger. It's in the middle of the hand, so it makes it very balanced. For students who might have trouble engaging all those knuckles, it can be helpful for the thumb to be behind the first knuckle like that. And at FSU, we call these the dolphin hand. And sometimes, especially with really young students, they like to pretend to be a dolphin swimming, or maybe you have a cute little story about a dolphin for them to read as they learn to play. And so the student then can engage their full arm weight and make this type of motion, and then depress a key and creating a full rich tone. And this is something they can do all over the piano. It is very effortless, but right away they are engaging their body properly and hearing a proper tone. And then they can be taught little pieces by rote, and even by reading, playing in this motion. This can be carried into learning how to play with different fingers, and then finally, when they're ready to play individual fingers, they're able to hold on to that beautiful hand shape with firm fingertips.
Practice habits are another area where a pianist can physically help or harm themselves. Many advanced pianists find themselves practicing 4, 6, even 8 hours a day. While a lot of this time is necessary to memorize and perform extensive programs, playing the piano for hours on end is not always the most beneficial way to go about preparing, particularly if one has not been previously playing for many hours. A sharp increase in playing time is a common factor for injury, so proceed with caution. I like to give the analogy of running a marathon. You wouldn't just wake up one day and run 26.2 miles for fun. That would be crazy. You would probably end up in the hospital. In reality, if you wanted to run a marathon, you would train, starting at shorter distances and gradually working your way up. Pacing your practice is important. This is also related to tempo. Playing fast is necessary for performance, but not always for practice. Let's take Rachmaninoff, for instance. He advised his students to practice extremely slow and did so himself the majority of the time. Tempo should gradually be built up to avoid harm and aid the body in playing efficiently. In addition to pacing, practice breaks should be incorporated. It can be easy to get absorbed in a practice session and not pay attention to the clock, but your body needs the break. I set a timer for 15 to 20 minutes when practicing to remind myself to take breaks. Now, these don't have to be extensive breaks. They can simply involve standing up and drinking a glass of water or stretching for just a few seconds. These short breaks will help your body relax and help avoid tension buildup. Breaks can also be useful mentally. Other strategies which aid pianists in playing at their physical best are the warm-up and the cool-down. If you have ever played sports, you will know that these concepts are very common in the athletic world, but less so in the music one. Maybe you are familiar with warming up in terms of playing scales and arpeggios. However, if you are jumping into these at a quick tempo, you may not be doing yourself any favors. Warming up should be done with physically warming up your muscles. This practice can involve dynamic stretching, which we will talk more about later. It can also involve playing exercises or scales, but starting at a slower pace and gradually getting faster as the body warms up. I recommend playing a set of scales or exercises with a metronome, starting at a slow tempo and gradually increasing the speed as the arms and fingers become ready to do so. Warming up can even involve using heating pads or running arms and hands under hot water.
This is especially important if you live in a cold environment. Personally, I buy the little hot hands and instant hand warmers in bulk, and I use them in my shirt sleeves to help my arms stay warmed up and ready to play as needed. The cool down can also aid pianists similarly. Athletes often have cool down rituals to prevent pain and bring the heart rate down. A cool down for a musician can involve slow playing, stretching, massaging, or icing. Ice is most often used for pain. However, ice can be a preventative tool as well to help muscles. You may have heard of runners taking ice baths to avoid cramping. Fortunately, pianists probably don't need to submerge their whole body in ice, but the practice of using ice is equally beneficial.
Body awareness is another principle where teachers and students should be mindful. As you are playing, you should constantly be evaluating your own performance. Ask questions like, how does it feel? Am I comfortable? If the answer is no, I challenge you to reevaluate your approach to that particular passage or piece. Record yourself so you can listen and watch more critically to see if you look and sound like you are wanting to. This note goes to teachers as well. If a student's approach looks or sounds contrary to what you are expecting, it is your responsibility to help them achieve a better playing approach. Oftentimes, the student may be completely unaware, and it's your job to help them become aware. I think the motto, see something, say something, is a great motto for teachers to hold to help students reach peak performance ability.
Exercise is important for anyone, but especially the musicians, since how well we perform our instruments is directly related to how well our bodies can move. Musicians should be strategic in their exercise in order to keep their bodies healthy and performance ready. Yoga focuses on mind-body awareness and combines movement with breathing. It involves gentle stretches that help in lubricating the joints, muscles, tendons, ligaments, and other parts of the body. It also helps to improve circulation, release tension in the body, increase flexibility, and tone the nervous system. Yoga has been found to relieve stress and anxiety. This can help musicians with these issues in relation to performing. Several types of yoga exist, with faster flows for cardio work and strength training, and slower ones which focus on stretching and relieving soreness. A great option after a long practice session. It also provides many holistic advantages, including increased breath control, which is useful when performing. Pilates, which is similar to yoga in many ways, focuses on concentration, control, precision, centering, breathing, and flow. It aids the musician in joint and mobility control. Another principle of Pilates is disassociation, which focuses on moving one part of the body without moving other parts. This factor can aid the pianist in moving efficiently at the piano and avoiding holding tension in various parts of the body unnecessarily. You may find that fitness instructors often combine yoga and Pilates in their classes. Strength is important for musicians to endure long hours of playing. Traditional weight training or exercises such as push-ups can put undue pressure on the body. Resistance bands provide the opportunity to build strength in a low-impact way. Other low-impact options are available, such as Pilates, reformers, or swimming.
Now, I would like to move on to reactive strategies. But first, I need to make a disclaimer. I am not a health professional. I am a music educator. So all of this advice is strictly based on my own opinions and experiences. If you are finding yourself experiencing playing-related pain, please make an appointment with a medical professional. The longer you wait, a small issue can turn into a big issue. So I definitely advise you that that should be your very first step. Now let's talk about some strategies you can do on your own as well.
All right, so now I want to talk a little bit about stretching. Again, I've referred to athletics a lot, and stretching is something you often do before participating in athletic activities, and musicians should also be doing this. There are actually two different kinds of stretching. So the first one I want to address is dynamic stretching. And dynamic involves movement, and it is the best kind to use when you are warming up, because you are warming up the muscles as you are stretching them. So a couple different stretches that I personally have found to be very beneficial, and health and medical experts recommend these as well. The first would be to just fold your hands together and roll your wrists. And you can roll in one direction and then the other. If you find parts that are uncomfortable, you can hold it maybe a little more. You can even do a figure 8 sort of thing and go opposite directions in that regard. All right, the next dynamic stretch I want to share with you involves the wrists. And this is an excellent one if you have any sort of tension in your forearms. I have had most of my issues or pain in this area of the arm, and so this is really good for getting both sides of the arm as well as the wrists. So you're gonna bring the wrists together, and they're going to circle one another, keeping in contact at all times. So I like to think that you're tracing around the wrist like it's a bracelet or something. So you will look like this. This can be kind of a foreign feeling if you've never done it before. So you go one direction a couple times, and then you can go backwards. Go the other direction. And maybe you go back and forth a few times. And those two stretches are great dynamic stretches to use when warming up before you play your instrument. An easy massage technique that you can perform on yourself is by using a gua sha tool. So gua sha tools have actually become quite popular recently in terms of facial gua sha and trying to reduce wrinkles. But these tools in traditional Chinese medicine are actually used a little more intensely to massage out different parts of the body. And I was introduced to this technique by my occupational therapist when I was getting my arms looked at for the first time. And she told me, like, hey, you can just order this on Amazon or elsewhere online for very cheaply, and you can just do this on your own at home. And I have found it to be an incredible tool. I use mine very often. There are more expensive options. This is made out of rose quartz, I believe, and there's jade options as well. In the United States, you might have heard of Garrison tools, and those are made out of metal, but they're basically the same thing. And those can be a little more expensive. So I advise you to buy one of these. But this is how I use it on my forearms. So you identify the area of the body that needs attention. So right in here is where I have a tendon that can act up a little bit. And so then you might apply some lotion or oil to help with the massage, and you just gently kind of scrape in a way. I know that's a great image. With your gua sha tool in one direction. And you start very, very gently. And you could do small or big, and you can go get a little deeper or a harder massage as you go, whatever you are comfortable with. If you have a lot of injury there, This one might hurt a little bit, but the benefits are worth it. So gua sha is spelled G-U-A-S-H-A, and you can find a little tool like this pretty much anywhere these days. Hello! So you may have noticed that I moved locations, and that's because this next strategy is best demonstrated on the floor. So massage therapy is obviously a great option and care for someone who uses their body a lot, might have tension in their body. But there are some things you can do even at home to just self-massage. So what I'm about to show you is something that some people would use like a foam roller for, and that's a great option, or other tools. But you can easily just massage your own arm with your other arm. You don't need anything else. And I'm on the floor, but this doesn't have to be done on the floor. It can be done on a tabletop. I have done this in the middle of a practice session. I just like walked around and done this like on the lid of the piano. Whatever works for you. But you get your forearm on the ground, so you have to lean over, and you use the bone of your other arm to massage out the muscles in your arm. And you just roll like this. And being on the floor helps because you can put your body weight into it. And so I'm not actually putting any pressure. I'm not creating any tension or pressure in this arm to massage my forearm. And I can turn around and do it on the back side of my arm as well, and both sides. This is can give you a lot of relief if you're feeling tension in the arm. I found especially if I practice a lot one day, I might wake up the next day and feel kind of tense and just a little sore from all the work I did the day before. And just massaging my arms out, maybe first thing in the morning, really helps set me up for a day of pain-free, and I'm able to do what I need to do.
Other strategies for recovery or prevention can include massage therapy, physical therapy, chiropractic care, and acupuncture. I have personally seen professionals in all of these areas and have reaped the benefits of their care firsthand. I personally have found KT tape to be useful for the pianist. Again, this is something that is common in the athletic world, but less so in the music one. KT tape decreases the pressure placed on the inflamed area and increases blood flow to that area. I always find that I have decreased discomfort or pain when I tape my arms. The only issue with this is it can irritate your skin, so use it strategically. Since I am not a healthcare provider, let's take a listen to one explaining how KT tape works.
How does kinesiology tape work? Having had a chance to reflect on how you think the K-tape works in the last section, hopefully you've written down some of your own thoughts. But how do we think the K-tape works? We have a good understanding how it works based on good quality studies, alongside our own clinical practice and what is reasonable. Papers to read are in the next section, but for now, here are some of our thoughts. We know there is a mechanical effect, both locally on the skin and on the deeper tissues. There was an interesting study here where they looked at an MRI scan and what happens to the tissues when using tape. We have increasingly positive anecdotal feedback from athletes and the general public, and the waterproof qualities allow continual effect between treatment sessions and can also be applied the day before competition. Pain relief is often instant, as you will find. On top of a mechanical effect, we know it can have a positive influence on the sensory nervous system, much like a lot of other modalities we use in practice. Throughout the course, we're going to use pre-testing on muscle patterning and movement. And what you'll often find when using the tape is that muscle activation could be normalized. So we can reduce muscle inhibition or improve muscle activation. And we also see often that you get enhanced motor control, perhaps through improved proprioceptive feedback.
All right, when I first started therapy for my injuries, my therapist would use e-stim treatment. This treatment involves electrical pulses, which mimic the signals of neurons and target either muscles or nerves. This treatment also encourages blood flow to the targeted injured area. Since I received benefits from this therapy, I decided to purchase my own personal eStim system. You can buy small ones that are fairly inexpensive just to use for personal use, and they can provide relief and treatment for pain right at home. Finally, the use of essential oils or ointments is useful. Common pain relievers such as Advil or Tylenol are not supposed to be taken over an extended period of time due to the risk of stomach ulcers and internal bleeding. This is why my doctor originally prescribed me an ointment for my arms. After I completed that treatment, I have found an equal amount of relief through many over-the-counter options. Arnica gel or ointment is one such option that contains minimal side effects and is one of my personal favorites. Again, heat and ice can prove very useful, not only to prevent pain, but also treat pain. Before I end this presentation, the final piece of advice I would like to give you is to listen to your body. If you are experiencing issues of any kind, do yourself a favor and try to find the source and remedy it. The old mantra of no pain, no gain has actually ended the careers of many aspiring musicians, but it doesn't have to be this way. The more open and honest we are about physical issues surrounding playing and performing instruments, the more those who need help will find it. If you are a teacher, I urge you to listen to your students. If they tell you about discomfort and pain, they are looking to you for answers. If you dismiss that their issue is not playing related when it really is, you could be setting them up for disaster. If you feel unprepared to help them, that's okay too. Seeking outside help can often be necessary. In the end, proactive work is key to preventing injury. Prevention is much more desirable as opposed to treating an injury after the fact. If you haven't already, I'd encourage you to incorporate some of the strategies into your own practice sessions and teaching that I listed today to promote wellness and avoid common injuries. Since we aren't in person, I'm not able to do a live Q&A, but I'd still be happy to answer any questions you might have. Please feel free to email me and I'll be happy to respond. Thank you so much for joining me today.